It's Twisting Blades Season Baby. My favorite build of all time is now topping the leaderboards, dominating Uber bosses, dominating the pit, dominating Astaroth, dominating me. And if that wasn't enough, it's one of the most fun builds of all time. Now, while the Poison Imbuement version is topping the leaderboards, the version of the build we'll focus on in this one is the Ass Wrath version. Simply due to it being so much faster for everything that is not pit pushing. Don't worry though, I'll provide you with the best pit pushing version as well in the planner for the ones interested. But now, let's focus on being fast, dealing a buttload of damage and having fun. Now with Azure Wrath, I'm not talking about my farts. It's this magnificent weapon. And this is how we do all of our damage, and everything in this build relies around utilizing this as optimally as possible. So, how do we do that? Well, shit. For starters, you need to understand how it functions. It's utilizing Lucky Hit to deal cold damage, meaning Lucky Hit is important. On top of that, it's been bugged for a year or something, allowing it to also scale directly via attack speed, meaning we want to get as much of it as possible, as it not only allows us to attack faster for more lucky hits, we're also getting a flat damage bonus from it. And what's even better, it's also possible to stack even more of these flat damage multipliers via tempering, but more on that later. Now you're probably like, but Mr. Big Penis Man, you recently released a pen shot build that looks similar to this one. How does it differ? Good man, you're completely correct. Thing is, Twisting Blades simply deals more damage. While pen shot was used for being absolutely chaotic and fun, there is no denying that this one does more damage. This is mainly due to two reasons. Twisting Blades is able to hit more enemies at once, assuming you actually gather up enemies, which you'll do via cleaving, and it also hits way faster, which is due to Twisting Blades and Penetrating Shot working with entirely different frames. Complex to understand? Yes, indeed, but all you need to know is that it hits faster than pen shot, and you're good. Now that's a bit about the basics, but there are a bunch of cool interactions making the build truly shine. Let's check them out by taking a look at the skills used here. First off, we're rocking dash. If you were to pit push, then you'd probably skip this. But we're all about speed over here at Pergaming. It's obviously used for mobility, and here's an added benefit of rocking Twisting Blades. It resets our cooldowns like crazy, meaning you're able to dash all over the place with ease. You can also combine this with Shadow Step for ultra speed if you ditch Caltrops or Poison Trap. Next, we have Shadow Clone. This skill is unfortunately bugged with Twisting Blades currently, meaning we deal a shit ton less damage than what we're supposed to when pit pushing. So, what's bugged? Well, apparently it removes the impales, making you deal way less damage on longer fights. But there is two ways to solve this. For starters, it doesn't fucking matter when you're farming because you and your Shadow Clone rarely attacks the same enemies. And for pit pushing, all you need to do is swap Shadow Clone for Death Trap and you're done. But there's probably a negative amount of people actually pit pushing in this game, so why even bother? In any way, Shadow Clone grants you a buttload of lucky hits and unstoppable when farming. Next, Shadow Imbuement. Here you're getting extra non-physical damage from the skill tree along with being able to use extra lucky hit, while also granting Shadow Imbuement additional lucky hits when they explode. Next, Poison Trap. It simply boosts your damage and allows you to keep alchemical advantage up, especially if you're not using a poison damage temper, but we'll discuss that later. And finally, Caltrops. Only used on bosses for the extra 45% damage. Alright, now let's take a look at the gear because there are some important pieces and alternatives you can use here. For starters, Air of Perdition is simply bonkers but not necessary, as you can use Cowl of the Nameless for the same amount of damage bonus pretty much, but it's a fantastic gear piece, especially if you can get one with GA on the lucky hit. Shroud of False Death, however, now that's a fantastic one. Here we don't have any actually good alternatives, so I'd focus on getting this one and Starless first. If you don't have it, no worries, grab a regular chest with a defensive aspect. We also have the AHU and Cax rune combo here. As soon enemies are low on health, this one will go off like fucking crazy, allowing you to gain a humongous damage increase, seeing how many lucky hits we're able to dish out. For the gloves, there's but one option: Fists of Fate. And the thing that is by far the most important here is getting a GA lucky hit chance, and masterwork that shit, because this is where we find most of our lucky hit. Without this, I'm instantly halving my lucky hits and damage. As Pantaloonies, you're grabbing most of your defenses here and getting some shadow imbuement ranks as to keep it up permanently. Second Wind is also a huge added defense, allowing us to stack up a massive barrier with ease. And for Aspect, Umbrous Aspect is mandatory, as you're getting like 40–50% damage reduction from Dark Shrouds alone. Pretty nice. When it comes to the sneakers, this is where we slap on the Slice and Dice aspect as to have our Twisting Blades cleave for additional lucky hits. Other than that though, this combined with the Pantaloonies is how you solve for resistances and armor. Here we have a good one, the crossbow or bow. It doesn't matter a whole lot. The most important here is to slap on Twisting Blades hit twice and masterwork it as much as possible. Hitting this 3 times will grant you a huge damage increase. We then slap on the Conceited aspect, as we'll always have a barrier, and the Tam and Thule rune combo to gain vulnerable and freeze easily. Alright then, on to the most important gear piece, Ass Wrath. You need this to make the build work, and you're looking for a GA on the lucky hit. The rest of the stats can go fuck themselves, or well partially. You're still looking to cap out your attack speed, which you'll do via the Paragons, along with attack speed here, on your gloves, rings, and then utilizing an elixir of advantage. For the other weapon, you'll find the by far most important part of keeping up your resources, a lucky hit chance to restore resources roll. This is mandatory for the build to work, as you'll otherwise just deplete your resources and will be forced to walk around like an idiot doing nothing. Other than that, though, you want to temper on a lucky hit to deal damage. Ideally poison damage, but cold damage is fine as well, but only if you're using Poison Trap, because otherwise you're missing out on alchemical advantage. For Aspect, Blade Dancer's aspect is a must-have for additional lucky hits. Alright, onto the Amulet. Having dex and passive ranks here is your prio. I'm missing a buttload of damage here personally, having max life on it. For Aspect, use Vehement's Brawler, as we need generic multipliers for Azure Wrath to deal more damage and start putting in some damage gems. For the rings, Starless is by far the best, having everything you need. Having GA on anything except core skills is great, as it'll either help you cap out attack speed, crit chance, or grant you more damage via additional lucky hits. And finally, a lovely ring with a bunch of attack speed and the accelerating aspect. Now here's an important thing to consider. Here are both of the attack speed caps. Getting to 100% in the second one is actually hella easy with this build now that we have the Myriad Stone Gem, but I'm personally missing a bit in the first attack speed bucket, so to cap both of them, I'd much rather have some masterworks on the attack speed on my ring, or a GA attack speed. But everyone's gear will look different, so just keep the both attack speed caps in mind when you're gearing. You're looking to get 100% in both for maximum damage. Well, damn son, gear complete. What do you say we check out the seasonal powers? Yeah, why not? For Nimbus, it doesn't actually matter which one you grab for this build, as we have such tiny multipliers here. Either use Cold Nimbus for additional freeze, or the Shadow one if you need more damage reduction. For the other ones, I'm using Bloody Charm for an execute, along with Gleaming Conduit to make it bigger, because size matters, don't let anyone tell you otherwise, and Fractured Core to remove those annoying ass resistance auras. When it comes to the other goodies, We first have our skill specialization. Preparation is absolutely mandatory as to reset all of our cooldowns and shadow clone. For Mercenary, however, you have a few different options. Subo's the fucking man, so I'm using him, having Molotovs for additional health globes and some additional lucky hit. For Mercenary, I'd use Variana unless you're decked out and attack speed cap, and if you are, then use Rayhair for defense. Hey, will you look at that, it's already skill tree a fucking clock, and you know it, baby. Starting us off, we have the basic skills. If you were to pit push, then you'd probably use Heartseeker as to trigger close quarters combat. But thing is, it's clunky as shit. So we're dropping a fart on these and grab Twisting Blades with its cooldown reduction instead, some damage reduction and healing, before heading off to the agility skills. Here we grab Dash, Shadow Step if you want mobility, and Caltrops for damage. Combine that with Unstable Elixir, which you'll have to keep up by chugging potions every now and then, and Trick Attacks to help us out with the crit chance cap and some damage. Triggering this is done either via chugging potions to stun enemies or tempering chance to daze on your gear, which I'm using, as it has the added benefit of staggering bosses fast as hell too. In the subterfuge skills, we're using Poison Trap for a knockdown and damage bonus, Dark Shroud for defense, and some lovely damage passives, which are all great to have on your amulet. If you were to pit push, then you ditch Dash for Smoke Grenade here as well. Next up, we go to grab Shadow Imbuement for additional damage and lucky hits, along with a buttload of damage multipliers. Where Deadeye is mainly used for when you dash away from enemies and having Twisting Blades return to you, which you could honestly consider ditching for more defense if you want. In the ultimate tree, we get a bunch of lucky hits, defense, resources, and our lovely Shadow Clone for unstoppable and lucky hits. And finally, the key passive. Here you have a few options actually. I'm using Victimize for the damage bonus, but you could also use Momentum if you want more resources and damage reduction as well, at the expense of some damage, or Close Quarters Combat for pit pushing. But mind you, you'd then have to use Heartseeker to trigger it, and that just feels god-awful. With that, let's get the hell out of here and check out our lovely Paragons. As you know by now, I'm going for speed, allowing me to invest in damage versus crowd-controlled enemies as they'll just die before getting out of it. First out though, we have Headhunter for additional dex and damage before heading off to the No Witness board, which you'll cap via Fluidity and if necessary some additional ultimate damage nodes. Next, it doesn't fucking matter where you go, so let's head off to grab Eldritch Bounty first and slot in the Canny Glyph for a huge damage bonus. Next, we go to Dance Macabre, where you'll find Control for massive damage versus crowd-controlled enemies. And finally, Exploit Weakness and the Devious Glyph, granting both some lovely additive damage and, more importantly, a large chunk of multiplicative damage versus crowd-controlled enemies. With that, we're done with this shit. Time to get good and learn how to play this magnificent build. Fortunate for you dumbass newbies, I've set the build up to make it insanely easy to play. There's barely anything to keep track of, and you're mainly just blasting. The only thing you actually need to keep track of is chugging a health potion every now and then for unstable elixir. Other than that though, you're using dash for mobility. Ideally, you'll dash into enemies as you'll then knock them down instantly and gain an additional damage multipliers from Malice. You'll keep spamming Shadow Clone and Shadow Imbuement whenever they're up, and after that, it all depends on how fast the enemies die. If they die slowly, then you throw a Poison Trap and Caltrops on them. If they die quick, however, then you just spam some Twisting Blades, dash away and keep going. Generally on bosses though, you always want to keep Caltrops and Poison Trap up for the entire encounter. And with that, we're finally done with this guide. Drop a sub, will ya? Maybe become a YouTube member or Patreon so I won't have to suck peens for cash, and I'll see you in the next one.